here today is for me to talk to you about and present to you the FIT, Financial Institutions Tax, and this wasn't originally planned as one of the presentations. I talked about it a bit at the spring conference, and didn't originally intend to have this as a presentation. And then I emailed out to the county audit, to all of you, our report, the auditor's state report for financial institutions tax, which is replacing the DLGF reports, and will be an annual report that goes out to you, and emailed that out to all of you and copied the Department of Local Government Finance on it. And then they mentioned to me, what you want us to send this out on the listserv, and I thought, yeah, that would be a good idea, and which that goes to more than just county auditors, and goes to schools, townships, cities and towns and the like, and that will be good. And then this became one of those things that I like to call that is in that category of no good deed goes unpunished. When this information got out to schools and cities and towns, did the questions ever start coming in? And then some questions from some county auditors, and I quickly learned that this is probably a topic I need to talk about, because FIT is changing. There are changes on the horizon, and of course, by that going out to the schools and townships and cities and towns, you know, that was probably the first time that many of those units had ever seen the whole complete comprehensive list of the financial institutions tax, and who's getting what amount and such, and I decided on the report that not to include any of the taxing units that aren't going to get an FIT distribution. Previously on the distribution worksheets with the DLGF, you know, all taxing units were on those reports, including taxing units that did not receive a distribution of FIT, and I thought, let's make this report as condensed as we can, and not list any unit that's going to, you know, not receive any FIT, because if they're not on the report that I sent out this year, they're never going to be on the report. The taxing unit is never going to get a distribution, and so today, hopefully, I accomplish in educating you as to why that is. Why are units not receiving FIT? Why does one school receive one amount and another school receive a lower amount, even though the school getting the lower amount is a larger school? Or why does a town not receive any FIT tax, but there is a bank in the town? And so I'm going to go over why this is the case today. So the first thing to do in trying to understand the changes is to erase from your mind everything that you ever did know about the state distribution of FIT. Just zap it out of there, because that's no longer in play. What I'm going to go through today are the new rules. One of the changes is the timing of the distributions. They're going to now be twice a year, December and June. And the calculation has changed. And there is no longer going to be a welfare and school FIT allocation. The only thing that hasn't changed is how you will calculate the amounts you're going to distribute to the taxing units, and what you do in your job with the distribution of FIT. That's the only thing that didn't change. So this change came about with the legislation this year in Section 125 of the House Enrolled Act 1001, which is the budget bill, and it amended quite drastically amended the Financial Institutions Distribution Statute. As I mentioned before, it changes the distribution frequency and the basis of the distribution. So effective July 1 of this year, the distributions will now be on December 1 and June 1. And so they're within a state fiscal year. And that's why I'm listing them in that order, December 1 and June 1. Because basically the June and December distribution amounts will be the same. There will be some slight difference because of rounding. The basis for FIT distributions from now on will be 40% of the previous state fiscal year FIT collections. And 1/2 of that amount will be distributed in December, and then the remainder will be distributed on June 1. The allocation, here's the biggie. The allocation of the distribution is the calendar year 2012 FIT guaranteed distribution amounts. That is the allocation basis now, and will be the allocation basis from here on out, or as I like to say, until they change the law. But this is a huge change. And there will no longer be a DLGF FIT guaranteed distribution report that you've been getting those every year. You will no longer get that starting next year. What there will be is the Auditor of State reports that we will be publishing on our website, and which the report is now published on our website. On your side, that December 1 distribution from us to you will be distributed by you to the taxing units on or before the December property tax settlement or distributions. The June amount will be distributed by you on or before the June settlement distribution. And as I mentioned a couple times already, there will be, and there is, an Auditor of State distribution report showing what the FI distribution amounts are and how it was calculated and what each of the taxing unit amounts are. So right now, that FIT distribution report that I emailed to you earlier is on the Auditor of State website. This slide here gives you that our location, where we're located, which I'm sure you're familiar, and provides you with how to navigate to that report. Each year, there is going to be another FIT report created, and most likely that report will be created in July and posted on the Auditor of State's website for the incoming December and June distribution. So next July, there'll be another calculation for the December 2014 and June 2015 distribution, and a report created that, just like the one that's out there now, just updated with the FIT collection amount. My anticipation is that that next report, the FIT amounts will probably be a little bit less. There are some things changing with FIT tax that will most likely result in FIT collections being a little less than they were the last fiscal year. And quite honestly, what the collections were for this 2013 fiscal year were really more than the forecasters were expecting. you know, the increase that you're seeing now for next year for these distributions coming up will probably not stay in place. There'll probably be a little bit less, hopefully not substantially less, but it will be impossible for us to provide to you what those amounts are going to be any earlier than mid-July, because we have to wait till the state fiscal year is wrapped up. We have to wait till the year is closed, and typically it's about the second week of July before we have firm revenue numbers for the fiscal year that just closed. So about mid-July, we should be able to do the calculation and get that out there. Just, you know, we're going to try to get it out there just as soon as we can, because those distributions will impact the budget you're working on at that time. And even though FIT is normally not a big component of the budget revenue, but so what does our distribution report look like and contain? Well, we're going to show you on the report what actually the state fiscal year FIT revenue was. This is going to be the basis, or the beginning of the basis, for the distribution. We're going to show you the total FIT distribution amount, and that total amount is going to be 40% of what the revenue was. And then we're listing by name and by levy type all of the taxing units that had a calendar year 2012 FIT guaranteed distribution amount. And we're going to be then listing what that guaranteed distribution amount is, because that's the allocation basis. And then we will show you a column that gives you the full fiscal year distribution amount, and then a column that will give you the December amount and the June amount. And it's the June is simply the total minus the December amount. So if there's any amounts that are not evenly divisible by 2, then the June amount will be slightly different than the distribution amount. So as I mentioned earlier, the taxing units that did not have a calendar year 2012 FIT guaranteed distribution amount, those units are not going to be on the report and never will receive a FIT distribution, or at least under the current law won't. Township taxing units, FIT amounts are split between the civil and fire levy amount. And this split is important, as you know, when it comes to distributing the township FIT amount. And if a township taxing unit did not have a 2012 fire levy amount or fire levy type amount, then that fire levy type will not be listed on the report. And the same is true if they did not have a civil levy type. There are several townships which only have a civil amount and not a fire amount. And that has to come in play with how FIT guaranteed distributions were calculated, which we're going to go over in a moment. So only taxing units that had a 2012 calendar year FIT guaranteed distribution amount are going to receive FIT distributions from this point forward. So that fixes the units that are going to be getting distribution amounts from here on. So, you know, if you look back at the 2012 FIT report, you all should have that 2012 report. If you don't, it's out on the DLGF website for your county under the county specific information. And the taxing units that you see listed on the DLGF 2012 FIT report, the taxing units you see listed as with a guaranteed amount should be the same amount, taxing units you see listed on our report. If they had a $0 amount, they're not going to be on our report. It's only those that had an actual distribution amount. And you should see that the 2012 guaranteed distribution amount on that FIT report from DLGF be exactly the same as what's on on our report. So take a look at that, examine that. Believe me, I've received numerous emails from numerous taxing units that some of which, when I first read them, make me nervous to think, oh gosh, something didn't go right in the data transfer. But then I'll look on our report and I'll look on the LGF report and yeah, it's there. So far, batting 1,000, and I hope to continue. But if you see something that is amiss, if you see a unit listed on that 2012 report from DLGF in a dollar amount for their guaranteed distribution amount, you see that and you don't see the same on our report, we need to know immediately. Because December 1 will be here before we know it, and we got to get that distribution out, and we sure don't want it to go out incorrect. The one thing for counties and schools, the guaranteed distribution amount and the final distribution amount are not one and the same. For counties and schools, what's on our report, dollar amount for the guaranteed distribution is the guaranteed distribution amount and is not the amount that was actually distributed to the county or the school. Because from the county and school in 2012, there was the subtraction of the welfare allocation for counties and the subtraction of the school allocation for schools, and the amount after that being deducted was what was distributed. What's being used for the allocation is the guarantee amount, which is before that deduction, and that's a good thing for counties and schools. So that it's for the other taxing units, there were no allocations being deducted, so those are a one-on-one match. So here is the slide that hopefully explains why a county, or not a county, but why a city or a town or a school or a township or a fire district or whatever other taxing unit that I may be forgetting, why a taxing unit may not have a FIT distribution and may not be on our report, and why another taxing unit is on the report. And also this slide will explain why that a town that has a bank today within their town limits doesn't get an FIT distribution, but yet a town across the way who doesn't have a bank is getting an FIT distribution. Hopefully this is the slide that you should look and help you understand this and help you then answer any questions you may receive along those lines. Because this explains how that 2012 guaranteed distribution amount is calculated. In the first step, the first requirement in receiving an FIT distribution in 2012 and for any time after 1989 was and is that the taxing unit received a bank tax distribution in 1989. Prior to FIT, there was a tax known as the bank tax. The bank tax was, and here I date myself because I know this stuff, but the bank tax was a tax paid by banks based on deposit balances and the like, was a tax paid to the county treasurer and collected by the county treasurer and was included in tax settlement and distributed to taxing units along with property taxes by the county auditor. Then along came 1989, and that particular form of financial institutions taxation was replaced by what we have now as the financial institutions tax, which is more or less a income tax paid by financial institutions. And so as what happens most times when we have a change like that, there's legislation to hold the taxing units at the time held harmless. That this change is not going to negatively impact a taxing unit that's getting bank tax. And so in 1989, that was how that data was collected by county auditors, given to the State Board of Tax Commissioners, which was what formerly the DLGF was formerly known as, and they that distribution was information was given to them, and then they compiled the amount of bank tax that each taxing unit that existed at the time, how much that taxing unit did receive. The other thing that happened in the transition from bank tax is that the personal property of banks then became a personal property that is taxed as property tax. And so the beginning was the 1989 bank tax. That's the beginning point. So if if it's a taxing unit that did not receive any 89 bank tax, then that's the end of the story. They're not going to be included in the FIT distribution, and they're not included in the guaranteed distribution calculation. So that's the first criteria. Well, two things could happen. Obviously, a unit wouldn't have received, if they didn't receive bank tax, they're not in it. Another thing is new taxing units that have come on board since 1989. Well, obviously they weren't there in 89, so they didn't have an 89 bank tax, so therefore they're not in the equation. They don't get FIT and never will, because there was nothing to harm them. They never received bank tax, so it's not a lost revenue to them because they didn't even exist. So that's why those aren't in. So the second thing that happens is then there's a calculation based on the tax returns of the banks, a calculation of what is going to be charged in the current year on that personal property, bank personal property. The DLGF asks you to put together bank assessment information that you give to them and that you were giving them in the past. That's something they probably won't have to do anymore. That's why they were doing that. They were getting that information so they could calculate what the property tax charges are going to be on those banks, and then we'll go through determining what each taxing unit's share of that tax will be, and whatever that taxing unit's share of that tax is, then that gets subtracted from that 89 bank tax. So that lowers the amount of the potential FIT distribution. So if the taxing unit did get 89 bank tax, but the property tax they're going to get in the current year is more than what they received in that 89 bank tax, then they drop below zero and they're not going to get a FIT distribution. So a taxing unit could be eligible, but they don't ultimately get an FIT distribution because that bank tax is going to offset that 89 bank tax. So those are the components that make up for the FIT guaranteed distribution. So what all happened in 2012 in that formula, in that equation, that is, where our taxing unit comes out at the end with a guaranteed distribution amount, that's what their basis is for getting an allocation of FIT from here on until they change the law. So I've had some curious conversations with some taxing units. Since the email, I had a library that just swore they got 89 bank tax. I know we used to get this tax. I know, there's just a big zero on there, and okay, we'll look that up. We'll find receipts for that. And then while they were on the phone, they were trying to find a receipt for that. Okay, go right ahead. So they were just convinced that there was an oversight somehow, some way on this, and said, well, who decided on that 2012 FIT guaranteed amount? And that was DLGF. And so, so Courtney got the pleasure of talking to the library also, but she never could find those receipts for that tax. But anyway, hopefully this slide will help. That's the mechanics of the 2012, and that's the basis for allocating money from here on. Glance there, make sure I didn't forget something on that. You wouldn't think one little slide somebody could talk that long about that slide, would you? Moving on here, your role in distributing money to the taxing units, there's real no change in what you're going to do. The December amount you're going to distribute to the taxing units before the December settlement, on or before the December settlement, and the June on or before the June. The tax rates that you're going to use in calculating the distribution will be the tax rates that are in place for that settlement year. In other words, for this coming December, this December distribution amount, you're going to use the pay 2013 property tax rates to distribute the certified property tax rates, unless you're low at levy-freeze county, and then you're going to use the certified rate plus the low at equivalency rate. But you're going to use, for this December distribution, you're going to use the 2013 tax rates. For the June distribution next year, same dollar amount in total, but you're going to allocate it using the 2014 tax rates. So whatever tax rates are in play at the time you're distributing the money will be the tax rates you're going to use. So that's a little twist there. But then come next year, the amount that's distributed next December, you'll use the 2014 rates for that December, and then the next June 2015, you'll be using the 2015 rates. So it's just whatever rates are in place for that particular tax year. Townships, as I mentioned, there's a civil and a fire split, or sometimes there is. And if there is, then the civil amount is distributed among the funds, not including the fire funds, and then the fire amount is distributed to the fire funds. If there is no fire amount listed on the FIT report, then there is no distribution to the township fire funds. And there are a few rare occasions where there is a fire amount and there is no civil amount. And if that's the case, then you're only going to distribute, to the fire funds. If there is a fire amount and there is fire territory rates, then you're going to use the fire territory rates to distribute that fire amount. For cities and towns, same thing. If there are fire territory rates for the city or town, then you will distribute, you will use the fire territory rates along with the other rates of the city or town to allocate the FIT amount. But the fire territory amount isn't distributed directly to the fire territory. You're still going to distribute it to the taxing unit, and it's up to the taxing unit to decide if they send it on to the fire territory. The fire territory statutes require the taxing units to pass a resolution to decide if their money from excise and from, in this case, FIT, would also be true for CVET, that to decide whether or not that money is sent on to the fire territory. It's only the property tax that goes direct. The other monies have to be decided separately by the taxing unit. And I can look on some people's faces and say, that's not what we've done. I wouldn't be surprised that be the case. But that is the little quirk in this fire territory statute. The fire territory statutes seem to have a lot of little quirks, but that's another one of them. So how did I do on time? Are we ready to eat, or, oh my, we're ready to eat.